This quick 30-second clip is really important on the general atmosphere of the economy and how it affects Palantir.
Shan, Josh makes good points. Blowout reports in many cases, and the stocks are not following through. I said yesterday that, the worst nightmare for the bulls is you have rates backing up yet again and mega caps selling off substantially, even on pretty good earnings reports. We got a problem with that? I mean, what's going on?
Those coincident factors are certainly a challenge.
Yeah.
If you think about what we're facing, and I think the cost.
Hit the pause button right there if you heard that. On pretty good earnings reports, we're still seeing some of these mega cap stocks that are continuing to fall in terms of their valuation. And what we have seen today in terms of the general markets is the S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, all down between 1% and 2% again on the day. This is in fear of rising interest rates that we have continued to see, especially with predictions about these interest rates and what the Fed has given out in terms of a hawkish position in terms of 2024. How this affects Palantir Technologies is one of the biggest earnings reports for the company is next week, November 2nd pre-market. We're going to be analyzing where Palantir is, how this influx of volatility could likely affect the stock, and what could be changing depending on your position in Palantir. If you are a buy sitting on the sidelines for watching it, if you're already holding it, or if you're trying to sell it. Hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. If you're new to the channel, thank you guys so much, or a returning viewer. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you want up to 12 free stocks, check out the Webull link down in the description. Now, if we pop it up on the screen, what happened to Palantir Technologies today? Let's start off with that. And we'll start with some bullish news shortly, slightly after, about the actually operations and the fundamentals of the company. Now, Palantir holds this critical level of support at this 15s, and literally Palantir is sitting on this thread right here and is hanging on thin ice. As we speak, a few days ago, and especially last week, Palantir was able to get up to this 1844 resistance that we've seen in the past, that we've seen even in the last quarter trading patterns. This cup and handle was formed right here, failed that, another cup and handle, but what you do have here is a bullish candle that was formed with a low of about 1521. Palantir is sitting at that right now with this cup and handle, and the support level is critical to Palantir, especially with earnings that's coming out. If we do not, and the bulls do not hold this line right here, then Palantir can come down here to the 1368s. However, what we could see possibly, if we zoom out a little bit on Palantir, is a buying pressure and confidence and possibly a run up with new news that has been released in the media that is very bullish for Palantir, possibly testing this 1844 resistance that we've seen, and possibly this run up to 2024. However, after earnings are released, even if earnings are hit, I think possibly what we could see, in my opinion, is a correction. Now, why we're saying that is because if we generally look at right here, volatility is increasing as the Fed has warned one more interest rate hike of 25 basis points by the end of the year, and a higher interest rate regime for a longer period. Now, the first rate hike is not expected until September of 2024, and inflation is unlikely to decline to the central bank's target of 2% for 2026. So we need to take that with a grain of salt, especially where Palantir is right now, and be really realistic considering its very high valuation. But that does not change what's happening behind the scenes and how Palantir is doing very well in terms of this economy. It's profitable, it has a huge amount of cash on hand, and just recently it was rated as a top AI vendor. And even with this bullish news, we're still seeing PLTR stock slip. But this does not change its perspective in terms of a long-term growth perspective. Rather, what we're focusing on right now is the short-term volatility. But if you're in for the long run, possibly Palantir could be coming down at very attractive prices. Now, with that being said, the new study that was basically released here ranks Palantir as the #1 vendor in AI data science and machine learning in this most recent study. 21% of these vendors reviewed had over 10,000 employees, and Palantir still has less than 5,000. Now, Palantir, what's really interesting here, scored higher than Google and many different other top AI companies, talking about its highest in analytical features, functions, models, operations, and usability. Now, this is great news, especially since their AIP platform and their AIP bootcamp, which allows possible clients to test it out for free and claims that you can get a use case out of it within 5 days for prospective clients. This was just released about 6 months ago. And so this is not fully captured in their revenue metrics yet, and that is still yet to come. But with that being said, what you do here is that Palantir AIP, this enables organizations to bring the power of generative AI into the most critical operations. And great to see here, it is ranked number 1. But with that being said, you are still seeing Palantir that is slipping and testing some thin ice in terms of a critical support level that I'm going to call right here, especially in the times that we are, like I said, with earnings coming out November 2nd pre-market at about that 15s. So let's talk about that. Quickly talk about yesterday. We had Suze Orman, who had stated that she was bullish on PLTR, bought it around the $7, and then it shot higher, implying to dollar cost average into the name. So you have big personal finance experts that are looking at Palantir, still bullish on it, even though we are seeing lots of interest rate hikes within the economy, and we're seeing corrections across the whole general market right now. Now, with that being said, especially with the Zacks right here with this article, still with the amount of interest rate hikes that we're seeing, talking about that, 5 stocks to add to the portfolio, Palantir is still on that list. That's one of the top 5 stocks to still add to your portfolio, even in the economic times that we are in right now. Now, with that being said, they have an expected revenue and earnings growth rate of 16.3%. And that's at an earnings per share with revisions that have been increased 5 times in the last 90 days in terms of a bullish prediction. And this is why what we're seeing with the Zacks consensus and the estimates revisions trend, that this has been revised 5.88% higher over the last 30 days compared to the current level. And what we're seeing with this earnings whisper is that recently with the Zacks rating, it has been changed from a hold, and Palantir is now rated as a buy. But what we are seeing is a strong predictor of an earnings being beat. And the reason why the numbers have shaped up for that is because for Palantir Technologies, the most accurate estimates is higher than the Zacks consensus estimate, suggesting that the analysts have recently become bullish on the company's earnings, and possibly do they have more information and do they have more intel on how Palantir is doing well in terms of its financials. And talking about that in the bottom line right here, there is so much volatility behind the stock market and for Palantir. Just because they possibly do beat earnings does not mean that there could be other indicators that could cause a sell-off. This is why we need to urge people to be very careful around these prices, especially if you're just sitting on the sideline trying to wait to throw in a big bag on Palantir. However, in the long run, Palantir is still looking very bullish in my opinion, and I'm going to be keeping it on the top of my list. However, I think I'm going to be waiting for earnings to be fully reported to see what happens and to basically get more of an intel on where Palantir will settle and possibly get in at attractive prices. But if we see a short-term run-up, that could also be very possible. Basically, in my opinion, my biggest warning would just be to anybody out there, or even to myself, is don't let it fool you. Take care, peace out, and I'll catch you guys later.